All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, all things cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Dow. And we have my friend, Gregory Pang, coming to us from Edmonton. He is a lawyer. And before we get into the intro for bringing Greg out, we're just going to acknowledge that today is September 30th. And it's also a new national day in Canada to recognize the Aboriginal lives that were lost in the residential schools. And so that is why we are wearing orange. Every child matters. And it's called National Day of Truth and Recognition. So we would just want to acknowledge that before we get into the podcast. And just because this happens to be the day that we are chatting. So with regards to Greg, I know Greg, it's been over 10 years since I've seen him physically, I think, since he used to be in Ottawa. His wife, Maria, was part of my women's cycling club, CycleFitCHICKS, and we raced together in my women's masters team. And Greg was one of our sponsors for our club because he is a trademark lawyer. And he also does other business and entertainment law. So he helped our cycling club with trademarking the club and the name. And so with regards to what other things and Greg's background is that, so he's also a cyclist. And that's what I just love about, cyclists and business and, just the different aspects of, people who are out there that do different things. So before Greg's law career, and I just found that out, he used to work in film and television for 5 years. So hence the entertainment law portion in various roles, from being locations PA to being an business coordinator in marketing and distribution. Gregory takes on his clients' matters seriously. He believes in having fun with the law by running panels and mock trials in Calgary and Edmonton. I guess he's a funny guy. In comic Expos, and also participating in Nerd Nite, which maybe we'll have to talk about that, I think.
Sounds good.
And also, Greg has a podcast, which is called Legal Cut Pro Entertainment Law Podcast. So if you're into law and entertainment, this might be something that you might want to check. But all of that will be in the show notes. And thank you, Greg, for coming out. He used to be really heavy into Twitter, which is where I used to follow him. I'm not going to say he's not there so much anymore. But welcome, Greg. I'm so excited to have you here.
Pleasure to be here, Sylvie. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh my God, I'm so excited that you came out here. So before we get into it, I always love to ask, how did you get into cycling? And then, how the law kind of, just give us a background on you.
Absolutely, Sylvie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'd say with cycling, it takes me way back to when I was just cycling to school when I was doing my undergrad. And this was over 20 years ago. And I remember cycling. And then I had a beater of a bike, right? Like a Sears bike that my parents bought me. I would ride it in the winter too. Okay. So I'd ride this bike in the winter and it just got beaten up, with all the crap on the road and stuff. And I would bring it into this local bike shop that was close to university and say, hey, can you fix this part? It's not shifting, or whatever was happening. And then they take the little Sears bike and then they explain to me, look, people who usually ride these kinds of bikes, they take it out twice in the summer and then they put it away. They don't ride it like you do. You need a real bike.
Let me show you our warehouse of our showroom of bikes.
Essentially, yes. So that's where I bought my first bike. I dropped, I think back then it was $800. I bought myself my first Brody cross-country mountain bike, and I rode it just for commuting at first, and then eventually I tried trail riding, and that's how it began essentially as a quote unquote real cyclist. I began trail riding, upgraded the bike. I put a suspension fork. I remember it was a Judy XC, a RockShox Judy XC suspension fork. I put on it. It's like, whoa, this is really good. I could really ride over these routes and not be like, oh, the whole time. And thus the adventure began in cycling. And shortly after, I tried racing, and then just much later on, after meeting Maria, and actually after seeing her race with you guys, I got myself a road bike and I started road riding, and on and on. And I'm still riding today, not nearly as much as I used to, but I'm still doing some riding. In fact, I did my first cyclocross race just a couple weekends ago.
Ooh, whoa. Yes, well, it is the season for cyclocross. That's right. I just saw the calendar, and actually it's going to happen here this year. It's been canceled, obviously, for the last couple of years. And yeah, cyclocross is fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I liked it, but I have to say, Sylvie, so this was 2 weekends ago. I had not raced for 10 years. Okay. Oh. So, and I had not.
You sound like me. Let's just go out and do something epic for our first race.
Yes, absolutely. So I had not raced in 10 years. I'd not even been training, it's just like casual, cross-country trail riding in the summer and then commuting every day to work. And the commute is pretty short, right? So I wouldn't count it at, at any kind of like, repetitions or anything like that.
You go down the valley, up the valley in Edmonton?
Well, not even. It's pretty flat from where we are. It's all flat to downtown, is where I work. And it's only like maybe 15 minutes. So it's really easy. And as you do it every day, your muscles get used to it and you get more efficient at it. So you're not really getting a workout anymore.
Faster.
I suppose so. Like a sprint, like 2 blocks before you have to stop again and start over again, right? So I count myself as I'm in pretty decent shape for my age. At 43, I'm in pretty decent shape. In comparison to other 43-year-old males, I'm in pretty decent shape. If you exclude professional athletes.
Yeah.
Of course. So this
the average race, people.
Yeah, yes. So this cyclocross race I thought I'd just do it on a whim. Maria actually clued me into it. She follows the Alberta Cycling Instagram account. She's like, hey, there's this race going on. Didn't you want to race? You have a cyclocross bike. You've never used it for cyclocross before. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. So
thanks, Maria. Yeah, I'm going to sign you up.
Essentially, that's what happened. And so I show up. I didn't even have like safety pins with me for my numbers.
Oh.
So they're like, you didn't bring your own pins. What? Have you never done this before? I'm like, no. So some guy there just gave me his
ruthless
pins,
right?
Because he was racing an expert and I was racing a novice, right? So I pinned these things on, get my single day cycling license, and I do the race. I swear, Sylvie, I felt like my lungs were going to explode. My legs were burning like I don't remember them. And again, it's been 10 years since I've raced and never done cyclocross before. I have to report, though, good news is I was not DFL. I was not dead effing last, okay? So I count that as a win in my heart, even though I was racing against 25-year-olds and I was maybe 12th or 13th place. And at the end, you'll be proud of me, Sylvie. It's like I was on my last lap and approaching maybe 500 meters to the finish. And I was catching up to this one guy. So catching up. And I eventually caught up to him about 200 meters left. I grabbed onto his wheel. And then I made my move. I did my attack and did a sprint finish with him. And I threw my bike and I managed to a wheel length at the end for a 13th place finish.
Oh, awesome.
in the novice field,
Well, hey, but that means that you are going to have to move up a category now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
Okay. How did you navigate the barricades?
Oh, they weren't bad. I mean, there was only one set of barricades.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I'm pretty. I wasn't. So one thing I learned, and I had to pull back from my experience, is to not go out too hard, right? Because I knew, okay, I'm not in the shape I was when I was 33. I'm 43 now, and I have not been training, so I conserve my energy. And the barricades, man, they were right above one of the hardest climbs in the course, and they put them like almost right after. So you're just like from climbing that last ascent there. Then you have to get off, dismount, and so I did the barricades fine. So that wasn't the issue. It's just a matter just to conserve my energy, make sure I have enough in the tank for a good finish in that last lap. And I can report that yes, I did not miss, did not screw up in the
smart racing.
Yeah. So it was, in the end, it was a lot of fun.
How long did it take you to recover?
Well, it wasn't too bad, actually. I thought I'd be really sore, but I wasn't actually really sore. It was just at the end, I just had to, take some time, take a breath. But it was funny. The guy that I sprinted to the finish, that guy collapsed on the ground afterward, right? Like, hey, yeah, good sprint, buddy. And he's like, So
I think I'm gonna do this again.
Yeah.
You sound like me.
No, absolutely. The only thing is, like, here, the cycling calendar for cross, it's like this traveling circuit, and maybe I'm just not looking at the right calendar, but it was like, okay, so this is the one in Edmonton, and then there's ones in Canmore, Calgary, and Rocky Mountain House.
Oh my gosh.
I have to go travel. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to, right now we have the worst COVID numbers in all of Canada here, right? So like, I don't think I'll be traveling for this. And
that's far. Like, there's nothing local that would say like the.
There were, but a couple of them got canceled because of the skyrocketing numbers with COVID, unfortunately. So like the only other races I see on the calendar are, I have to go, like I said, travel to Calgary or Canmore.
Calgary's all open, aren't they?
Not anymore.
Oh no, I've got to touch base with my sister. So all right, I'm glad to hear that you're back to racing. Now, where did your law jump in? Because when I met you, honestly, like, Greg was amazing. So if there's anybody in here from Canada who's looking to get trademarked or trademark anything, you talk to Greg, because he sponsored our club, and in his sponsorship, that was part, he did the work and we had to pay the bill. But he was exceptional. So how did you decide that was your avenue of, well, actually go back to your entertainment, like back to the film, working in film and TV. Is that where you decided to become a lawyer in that area? Like, take us back there.
Yeah, I suppose my first part of my career, or my first career in film, was just because I always have been fascinated with the film industry. So I wanted to work in the industry. And I worked as per my bio, I worked as a production assistant and various roles on set, in production offices, in a distribution office, for about 5 years. And I always just liked the industry, and it was always really fun to talk about it because it's a very small niche, field of work, and it's fun to tell stories about it, right? I went to law school because essentially I didn't find that I was really progressing much, and I found like there was a certain ceiling in terms of how much money you can make and stuff like that. And I just wanted more satisfaction in the career. So it was really not much more other than just thinking that, and writing the LSAT and applying to law schools and going to the one law school that would accept me. So, but luckily I kept my connections throughout that time with my film industry contacts in Alberta, and I was fortunately able to reconnect with them upon coming back, and then start kind of breaking my way in to legal services to the film industry here, which it's a much smaller industry here than, say, in Toronto or in Vancouver. So there aren't as many entertainment lawyers here. So it's been nice to be able to carve out that niche practice where I could say, yes, I am one of the 3 or 4 entertainment lawyers in all of Edmonton who deal with in this area of practice.
Very cool. Now, can you practice in the United States, or is that a whole different can of worms down there? Like, is it different education or a different certification, or?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And what it is that you are licensed in each jurisdiction. And in Canada, I surrendered my Ontario license when I moved back to Alberta. So I'm licensed in Alberta, but we have, without getting into the weeds, we have interprovincial mobility agreements because most of Canada, except for Quebec, we have fairly
Love
similar,
Quebec.
we have fairly similar laws. Although I did
Yeah.
a lot of work in Quebec when I actually I lived and worked there for quite some time. But in the United States, it is quite different, but similar to Canada, where each state is its own jurisdiction. You have to be licensed in each individual state. So if I wanted to go practice in California, then I would have to write the California bar to be licensed there. In New York or what have you, right? So, and the other thing is that not all jurisdictions in the state recognize the Canadian law degree. So, yeah, so I think there's like 4 of them that recognize Canadian law degree, so you don't have to get a JD from an American law school to be able to write the bar. And I think California and New York are two of those states. I might be wrong. I might have to verify that they will recognize the Canadian law degree, so you can write the bar there.
Oh, very cool. But I don't suppose you have American clients. They're all Canadian.
No, but I deal with American parties though. But my clients themselves are mostly Canadian. But I do have clients who have deals with like say U.S. studios and stuff like that. So I'm not a stranger to dealing with U.S. lawyers, and it's always a lot of fun. Like I can't name the client, but I have a deal, an option agreement that I negotiated with Blumhouse. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but they do a lot of the horror films like Out. I remember that one. I think it won a couple Oscars or something, or Golden Globes. So they're the studio behind that, Blumhouse. And I have another deal that we are negotiating right now with them. No, they're not a big studio, but there's this other party located in New York, and they have a California lawyer, so we're in touch with them right now. So I deal with a lot of, although I can't practice American entertainment law, I am familiar and deal a lot of times with American parties on the other side of the metaphorical table.
Are they because they film in Canada that they would use your services? Because a lot of you American films or companies are coming over to Canada to do a lot of filming because it's cheaper, or they were.
Sometimes that, but more of the times, like I have, say, a concept here that's owned by a Canadian company or a Canadian person, an artist, and they want to sell it. They want to come to some kind of deal with, for example, Blumhouse, this big studio. Well, big compared to us, but compared to big American studios, they're pretty small. The studio in the US that they want to, say, option the concept to be able to produce it at some point, right? And they want to option it, buy that option from my Canadian client. And so that's usually more of the typical type of relationship that I deal with, rather than the service productions. Although those would be pretty lucrative if I can get more into those as well.
Hey, just putting it out to the universe. Great,
Yeah.
looking for some more lucrative projects. All right, so and now talk about so your industry, and then you went to law, and you're working in the trademark area. Mm-hmm. Now, does that cross over into, because I don't know if we were a unique client of yours in the cycling industry or cycling, but do you work with some, because you mentioned that you had some clients in the cycling area.
Yeah, and it's mainly been CycleFit was sort of unique because I think they are so far the only cycling club, like race club that I have done work for. But I have done work for other types of cycling organizations, and some of this is public record, and I can mention those clients. One of them is from Ottawa. I used to volunteer. We talked before we began recording about Recycles, which they're a local used bike shop, and I did some work for them. and I registered one of their trademarks as well. And I have a small handful of cycling, like local bike shop businesses
Right.
who I have done some trademark work and other business corporate work for. And just recently, I onboarded a new client. They're a manufacturer of very niche components for bicycles. I can't name it yet because they are not, this is not public record. But we are right now negotiating a deal with a former Olympian to do some work with this manufacturer. So that's a very interesting one.
That most recent?
I can't say.
I
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I'm like, oh, maybe I might know who you're talking about, because I don't know if it's because I just saw some ex-Olympians. Well, ex-Olympians meaning the ones that just participated in the Tokyo Olympics, post and advertise a new business. And I was just like, actually, I was trying to figure out what kind of the new business was, but I was just looked at it quickly. I was like, oh, a couple of the girls that I know. But that's super cool. So where's your so tell us a little bit more about the business, because I know that for us, and if there's anybody here who has a cycling club, we trademarked ourselves, gosh, we're 13 years, probably like 8 years ago, to our club name. If we can have apparel with our names on it and things like that. So just thinking about future, if you have a club, it might be ideal to trademark the brand and the company if you want to grow it in the future. And Greg is a great person to talk to. So do you have let's talk about your business right now and what's going on with that.
On the trademark side, so absolutely what you mentioned, that's definitely one of the things I do for businesses and potentially for more cycling clubs. One of the conversations I'll need to have with a potential client about that is about like, okay, will it be worth it for you, right? So you remember the filing fees, like there's these government fees that you paid. And is it worth those government fees to be able to get that registered trademark? What does this registered trademark mean for you, right? And there are advantages to doing it, especially if you're going to be selling a lot of apparel, if you're going to be growing the brand more, and you potentially generate more revenue from the brand itself and from selling apparel and other accessories and stuff like that with the brand name or logo on it. And that could be worth it, right? But not all instances I'd say is worth it. I mean, we had like you mentioned, a sponsorship deal where I think if I can mention it, like I think you guys paid out of pocket costs, and then the rest I charge nothing for my fees, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I can only imagine how much your time went into that, because like I didn't see that part of it, right? Because we paid I think it was the government right. bill for it.
Yeah. So and then under that kind of arrangement, it could be very much worth it, right? Because the government fees back then weren't that much. Now they have increased by depending on the type of application, they have at least changed, and it could be more now, right? Because it's been a number of years, and there have been changes to the legislation. So I'd say it's not a for sure for every instance of a club that one that their name itself could be registered. I have to give an opinion on that, and two, whether depending on what you're doing with the name, it could be a good idea, and we'd have to have a frank conversation about that and whether it'd be worth it or not. I mean, if the club just has a pile of money that they need to spend and they want to throw it towards lawyer to get a trademark, I'll take that too, right? But I'd like to definitely talk about. I'm not one to just sell filings. I'd like to actually talk about to the client, is this in your interest, and how does this align with your business goals or the business side of the club goals, and is it worth it?
Yeah, because I often think about that apparel, because I think cycling clothes apart from jerseys and post-ride clothing wear for women would be super cool to add. But, it's like one of those things. We're non-for-profit and, it takes a body to get that rolling and, online sales and things like that. But I like the fact that we have that in our back pocket if we were to want to do that. So, if a club, what do you think about this, Greg? Like if a club's been around for a long time, is it worth it?
It could be. And here is where I like to talk about with the club. Okay, so if the club has been if the hypothetical here is that club has been around for a long time, and what else are they doing with their brand? I think that would be my first question. What else is it? Just the name of the club, or are you those are great ideas you're talking about, like after cycling clothing, branded after cycling clothing that you could sell, and especially at once races in a normal non-pandemic year start picking up again, you get crowds and stuff like that, and let's say you're able to set up tents or stuff like that to sell your wares, clothing and other stuff, branded clothing, then that could be, in the long run, that could be worth it, especially for a club that has a long history and reputation with the community, the city, or the cycling community. So those are the first questions I would ask. Is like, okay, you've been around a long time, but what else are you doing with the brand, or what else do you plan to do with your brand? And sometimes it's possible that you might be branching off. Maybe there's the not-for-profit, for example, CycleFitCHICKS. There's a not-for-profit cycling club, and then maybe there's a whole line of other stuff that you want, a line of business that you want to spin it off into, that could be a profit-making business or something like that, right? So then now we're talking something a little more complicated, that maybe the not-for-profit will own the mark, and then it will license it to the business arm or something like that. So we have to really talk about, okay, what is the business case for this? Because not-for-profits, of course, I know you have a limited budget. You want to spend your resources effectively and for the interest of the club. And then we'll talk about, is this in the interest of the club?
Hey, let's take a mini break because I have to tell you about this unique online cycling coaching program that's going to blow your mind. This is your fast and easy way to become a better and stronger cyclist by joining an online 16-week cycling training program geared towards improving cycling skills. My name is Sylvie, your podcast host and Level 3 National Cycling Performance Coach. I have been coaching this unique 16-week program every winter since 2006. Why did I create this unique 16-week program? Winters were harsh and still are here in the region. No one likes or liked to work out alone in their basements until the world of online cycling really took off last year during COVID, which has been a game changer for cyclists worldwide. So why would you sign up to a 16-week online road cycling training skills program when you could be riding inside? Well, here's the thing. There's this little known thing called the 4 key pedal strokes. Hardly anyone is talking about, but when you learn and use them, you will see a huge difference in your cycling performance, not to mention impressing your friends and yourself. First, why are you training on a trainer this winter anyways? What are your goals? Do you want to get faster? Could it be moving from 18 kilometers an hour to 20 kilometers an hour? Do you want to win that sprint? Are you looking to get stronger on the hills? Do you want to now be the first to the top, not the last? Is it your endurance base building? Do you want to move into a faster ride group? Or maybe you're looking at getting into racing. Whatever the goals, they require specific skills that need to be taught and practiced in order to improve. I've coached over 500 cyclists in this program with a reported 5 to 20% increase in cycling fitness over the 16-week. Here are a couple of reasons that this program might be for you. You're still frustrated with climbing hills and keeping up with the pack. You like structure and scheduled training sessions. You like to train in your cycling zones. Your heart rate is all over the place. Possibly you want to optimize gear changing and learn a little bit more about that to become more efficient. You would like coaching feedback on technique and form. Joining a cycling skills program like the 16-week program can provide more benefits that will help drastically improve your cycling fitness through focused training in your heart rate zones, hill climbing, speed, endurance, while building up fitness through the 16 weeks of periodized winter and strength training program. Go to 16wkroadcycling.ca. That's 16wkroadcycling.ca for all the details and to join today. The program starts in December. Now, back to our episode. Kind of like an interesting thing. So using like the club as an umbrella, and then you can branch off to different departments, I guess you could say, like avenues. That's what's like, think about what I want to do. Because I know, because we branched off into event organizing, so we have an event and I like to grow on that. And then, there's always like the clothing line. Then like, what else could we add? I mean, that's the question I'm asking myself right now. How can we grow our club to be more of a community thing? But so talk about more of the things that you're doing right now. Like there's a mention that you brand yourself. So talk about your podcast.
Sure.
You laugh. What?
Absolutely.
How long have you been doing your podcast?
I think like a year and a half, and I laugh because we haven't done a recording in like 8 months because myself and my
Greg, I think it's time to get on that.
I know. Myself, so the podcast, as you mentioned, is called Legal Cut Pro, and the topic of the podcast, broadly or generally speaking, is about entertainment law. We talk about things like music licensing. We talk about location releases. We talk about distribution agreements, stuff like that. That would be of interest to Canadian independent film and television producers. And I say we because it's myself and my co-host Michelle Molyneux, who is also a lawyer and she's an actor as well. So she's not old, but she's a veteran of the industry. And but right now she's doing her LLM, and I've been just super busy. So that's why we haven't recorded in so long, but we should really get on that. But
I think so. You can do a little 10-minute segment. Hey, I just heard here's a really funny story.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I should definitely be more on that, but it's just,
you can use this segment as your launch back into, hey,
perhaps. Absolutely. Yeah, perhaps. And yeah, so that's essentially the long and short of it. And the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and most major podcast catchers. So if any of your audience has any kind of interest in that, we try to have some fun.
I think that would be kind of cool. I have to get that link, and we'll add it into the into the show notes so everybody can go and access it. So also just learning more about Greg when it comes to like trademarking and cycling. Now, is there anything else that of interest that's going on in your life that you can share with us in Edmonton?
Not right now, not without going into the dark political and the health situation here.
Yeah, right.
So we'll stick to the happy stuff right now, okay?
Yeah, happy stuff.
Well, not really a whole lot else. I mean, the practice is very busy, and the cycling has taken a bit of a backseat. I'm so glad that I'm trying to get my son, Luca, who you met off pod.
My gosh, he's grown up.
Did you meet him as a baby? I don't remember. Yeah, little tiny guy, right? So I remember, you came to our pre-baby party as well.
Or maybe a going away party, like, cause
no, it was a pre-baby party. It was a not a baby shower party where we just had a party.
The baby's already here. Yay!
No. You were pregnant as well. I remember.
Yeah. So how old is he?
9.
Oh, yeah. So I would have been pregnant with Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the Lucas, you got the Luca.
Well, I remember because when you gave I remember this one part of the night when you gave Maria a hug and you're like, oh, baby bumps or something
Ah,
to that effect,
that's right.
right?
Oh my gosh, that's 9 years ago. So that's probably like the last, well, almost maybe the last time I saw you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, pretty much, right? And yeah, so we're getting him into. I'm trying to get him into more into cycling. Although, as for our pre-podcast discussion, he's getting more into swimming than anything else. But you know, he's a so far he's learning. He's slowly learning a little bit about trail riding. I got him a nice specialized hot rock 24 with 24-inch wheels, and I'm putting my mechanic skills to good use because I buy these things off Kijiji, right? I don't like buying them new for kids, right? Because they outgrow them so fast, as you know, right? So
right. They're
I
like,
get it
hey, I
like
don't
off
like it.
Kijiji. You know, or you know, I just don't take interest in cycling anymore, or you know, yeah. So I buy these things off Kijiji, and this is every one of his bikes I buy off of Kijiji, and usually from some guy who doesn't know how to maintain bikes, so they sell it cheap, right? Then I still have to spend a lot of money to overhaul the whole damn bike. But I know how to do all
But
that.
you get a quality bike.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here it's like a specialized hot rock, and the guy didn't know how to maintain it, so that the hubs are like super stiff, and you know, chain hasn't been changed, and wheels are not true, and stuff like that. So he thinks it's in bad shape. I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, okay, if I spend, I'll probably have to spend at least $100 in parts and bearings and other stuff to refit this entire bike, but I can do it all myself. As long as I take some time, then I get and as long as the the aesthetic condition of the bike is pretty good and everything else is pretty solid, then yeah, I can fix up this bike and get my kid a pretty hot little mountain bike.
Ah, so yeah, because I mean, I think that's great because you used to do a lot of volunteering locally at Recycles where you learned a lot of those mechanicals, right? Because you used to spend a lot of time there,
I did, and
didn't you?
that's where, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I used to volunteer as a volunteer mechanic, and then I was like a shop assistant or something like that for a little while. So I really cut my trade, or whatever the expression is. Learning how to do all sorts of types of maintenance on bikes. I can do a lot of stuff, but I don't touch a lot of the more, I guess, modern advanced components. So like some of that stuff is like, okay, no, if I screw this up, it's like $500 right there or something like that, right? So that kind of thing I take to the shop. Yeah, but for most kind of lower end or kids bikes and my commuter bike, I can do all the maintenance and major work on it. But yeah, and another way I'm applying that skill is that we have this program here. I don't know if they have something similar in Ottawa. I think it is national. It's called You Can Ride Too. And I haven't volunteered there for a little while, mostly because of COVID. But what they do is that they assemble these really custom bikes with custom proprietary components for mostly kids who have physical disabilities.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
so
they make them into trikes and things
yes,
like that?
exactly. Yeah, but
Okay.
as you know, as kids get bigger, you can't ride training wheels because they're too heavy and you're way too top heavy, right?
No, but like I know that you can, with a different hub or something, you can make a
Absolutely,
standard road bike into a three-wheeler,
that's right.
like for an adult. Yeah.
That's right, and that's one of them. And we've seen that during the Paralympics, they have those, right?
Mhm.
So, but those are very expensive, because
Yeah.
they need to be a good quality so they can support the weights. And
Right.
the kids, they are of different levels of disability. Some of them they could barely walk on their own, and so you need something more like a relaxed
Recumbent.
type of setting. Yeah, yeah, and they need help even pedal assisting and stuff like that. So it's a very, I think it's very gratifying because you see these parents, they come in and their kid can otherwise not ride a normal bike with the other kids in the neighborhood. And so these bikes, they're all on loan, right? So we don't,
Yeah.
they're not given away, but every year they are fixed up and customized, like essentially fitted to the kid, and they take it for the summer, and then they
Right.
return it in the fall, and then we do a
Uh-huh.
check, and then we do
Yeah.
maintenance and fix it up, and then the cycle goes turns around over again, and in the winter then there's another group of parents that come with their kid and fit them to bikes, and then they pick it up in the summer and then they use it again. So
So Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like I mentioned, it's very gratifying because it just seeing how happy the parents and the kids are. It's like, yeah, I have a bike. I can ride a bike, and I'm like, that's awesome. I take it for granted that able-bodied people like myself, Maria, and our son Luca, like it's just like, okay, we just have to teach how to ride a bike. But for kids with these kind of disabilities, they can't do that in the normal sense. So to be able to customize a solution for them, and at very little cost, if any cost. And I don't know what the program, the details of the program in that respect, that they can ride bikes and enjoy it, like normal, or let's not say normal, like able-bodied people like ourselves, is very, very cool to see.
I like that. So at the end of the summer, when they're finished with their bike and they bring it back, is there an option to buy a bike for their child, or do they come back the next year and rent it again, like after the winter?
I think it's the latter, Sylvie. I can't say for sure. I don't take care of those. I don't know much about the details of the program there. But what I can do is I can find the website, and so you can shoot it in the show notes.
Cool.
And if anyone's curious, they can look it up. And like I said, I believe this is a Canada-wide thing. So, but yeah, I can't. My answer is I don't quite know. I think it is the latter. They don't sell the bikes, but it's rather this thing of just going. It's about loaning the bike for the season for the child.
Yeah, because I kind of wonder if maybe if they're trikes, that they have an agreement, or like maybe a partnership with Cat Trike that has those trikes, and then it's like, is the kid enjoying it? Is the family wrapped around the bike? Like, is it worth buying? Because they're not cheap, obviously, getting those tricycles or those recumbent bikes. They're like a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know what the best thing about it is as well, along with what I mentioned, doing that kind of volunteering, is that I'm just a guy with a wrench there, and no one has to ask me about law. No one has to ask me about anything business. I'm just a guy who fixes bikes there. I don't have to talk about any of that, and it is in a way I'm contributing to society, but I don't have to talk about any of that other stuff just for a couple hours or a few hours or whatever my shift would be. So I for some reason I just think that is just a fun thing, just to escape where you're still doing good.
I like it. I think, and I know that it's cool that you found something like that in Edmonton, like when you left Ottawa, because it's also, like you said, very gratifying to. And sometimes I'm like, man, I know it's like a time thing. I'm like, can I find something like that I could help with? Because not only are you helping, and it would be in a capacity, because I think about you when at Recycles, I'm like, what? Because I'd like to learn more about mechanics. Like I know like basic stuff, but I don't know the more advanced, like the truing and like working on the derailleurs and things like that. Like I can get by with like general maintenance, maybe it more advanced, but it's always nice to learn more. And I'm sure I just kind of wonder if maybe I should look into that.
Yeah,
I should just do that, because it's like carving time out, right? Like, I have to remove something and put that in. It's like
absolutely, yeah.
I can't pack it all in, right? I was just talking to my friend about that. It's like if you add something, you have to extract something else.
Absolutely, I agree, and sometimes we have more time than we think, because how much time do we spend watching Netflix every week?
I don't watch TV at all.
None at all?
No, actually. Maybe I scroll TikTok a little long, but probably not enough to be like in like some people in net. Yeah, like me going into Netflix is like I get overwhelmed with like trying to pick something to watch, and so I don't watch anything. But we do watch Survivor. I know that's not on Netflix, but the new season just started. So that's like
Nice.
my husband's and I's date night, sitting on the couch watching Survivor. But hey, that's my carved out time. But
Hey, that's perfectly fine. Like we
so how often do you volunteer?
Right, I haven't volunteered for a while, and I think I mentioned, mainly because of COVID, right? It's like because most of these they're indoors and enclosed spaces, right? So, but I have been thinking about going back. So usually for You Can Ride Too, it was you have certain volunteer shifts in the spring and in the fall. For the intakes and for fitting, or not intakes. I mean for the returns, and then for fittings, and then something like that. So that's usually how it was. I haven't done it in probably more than a year now, but I am always thinking about going back. It's just one of those things that it's just really a weird world right now, weird time, where it's like, Jesus, I'm fully vaccinated, but right now Alberta is like in a really, really bad place. We're like the Florida of the North, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's like okay, I've been concerned about traveling for a while, and then I look at, well, geez, I think I'm in more danger in Alberta than anywhere else. So maybe I should just get the hell out of here. But
time to go on a road trip.
Yeah. Let's set that aside for now. That's normally how it would be. And I'm hoping to be back perhaps in the spring, or maybe in the winter when there's a call for to do maintenance on the bikes that have been returned.
It's unfortunate that a lot of places like that have suffered.
Yes.
And then the trickle down effect of the people that it helped and families and things like that. But yeah, it is a strange time for sure. So where can we find you if somebody needs any legal services?
You can find me on my website at redframelaw.com. That's the main for the business side. The podcast, you can just go to either redframelaw.com or legalcutpro.com. That'll both, the first will lead you to the website. The second one is a redirect to the podcast page on the website. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just search Gregory Pang.
No more Twitter, eh?
Well, I still am on. I still lurk, but Twitter is such a dumpster fire of just negativity and people yelling at each other. It used to be okay. I was an early adopter of Twitter. Okay, and of course, you mentioned that you used to follow.
That's when I used to follow you back then.
So way back when Twitter was really young. And the analogy I really liked was that Twitter used to be this really cool bar, local bar that cool people like me and you used to go to, right? And you have interesting conversations, you meet cool people. And then that bar started to change. It started to get louder. It started to expand, started to get bigger. People, more obnoxious jerks started to go to the bar, where now the conversation is drowned out by noise, and bad noise too. There is still value to Twitter. I'm not slamming the platform that much, but it's not what it used to be. It's not that cool bar it used to be.
Your crowd needs to change, Greg.
Maybe.
You need to remove some of your Twitter, or some of the people are following or following you, and then populate it with some more mindful, followers. No, I'm just teasing. But I don't know. I don't get on there much. I just do some advertising, but I've always like, see what's going on. And I guess it's just the certain people that I follow that I see, and that's it. It's all cycling actually, so it's not that negative. I don't know, who are you following?
Oh, it runs a gamut, but it'll take another hour podcast recording to explain that stuff. So
yeah, right. All right. Well, you can find him. We'll be adding the links in all the show notes. And so, do you want to end us with some more words of wisdom before we?
No words of wisdom, but I just like to say thank you, Sylvie, for reaching out. It's really good to see you, and thank you for putting out the podcast, and thank you for your time to accommodate me for this.
Oh, well, I super appreciate it. And I was really happy to connect, because like I was like, oh, I wonder what Greg's up to. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those things. Um, you haven't seen someone. I'm like, and I'm like, he would be awesome on the podcast because A, he's a cyclist, B, he's a lawyer, and C, he's super cool. And so, I love that we are able to connect and bring your story to the podcast. And so I just want to thank all of our listeners. And just to make sure, if you haven't started following the podcast, to follow the podcast. Like I always say, you never know who I'm going to bring on. I have a very array of network here that I am accessing, and then I'll access Greg's network and I bring in some of his friends. But thank you very much, everyone, and have yourself an amazing day. And don't forget to ride your bike, right?
Ride your bike.
Take care, everyone. Bye.